Welcome to North TV's One-on-One with the King Philip School Committee Candidate Special in advance of the Monday, April 1st town election. Polls will open at 7 a.m. on Election Day and will close at 8 p.m. All precincts will vote at the Public Safety Building at 194 South Street behind Plainville Town Hall. North TV will once again be your exclusive source for live election results beginning at 8:15 Monday night on our Plainville channel, Comcast Channel 8. We'll also stream those results to watch on any device at plainville.northtv.net, a free service to all Plainville residents. I sat down for interviews of approximately 15 minutes with the two candidates seeking three or make that one 3-year seat on the school committee. The interviews in order: incumbent Bruce Cates and Christopher Brunet. Bruce, let me begin by asking, why are you running for another term on the King Philip School Committee?
The short answer is continuity. This would be my third term if the town chooses to elect me, and we've had a lot of change over those 6 years that I've been on the committee. My first year on was the first year with the new superintendent, Mr. Zinni, who then retired last year. We went through the superintendent search, found a new superintendent, so now we have a new superintendent and two new principals and some other administrators that are fairly new, so I think continuity is needed right now.
I have had a chance to interview the new superintendent, and congratulations, you guys did a good job.
I think we got an excellent one, yes.
Absolutely. Came over from, I believe, Seekonk.
Seekonk, yes. Yes.
What are you most proud of in your 6 years on the board?
Probably on the finance side of it. That's really the reason, the catalyst that drove me to leave the chairman of being of the finance committee. It was a very contentious year that year. King Philip proposed a ridiculous budget that year. They couldn't explain the reasoning behind a lot of the line items. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring for school committee, and I've been on the finance side of things. Usually you're either on the finance or the policy side on the committees. I definitely gravitate towards the finance, and every single year we've had a responsible budget, and the towns have really embraced that.
Norfolk is known as a wealthy community.
Yes.
Wrentham, we all know the story about affordable housing, and we don't want that here in Wrentham and so on. Plainville, not that Plainville's a poor town, but compared to the other two, Plainville's probably a little behind financially. Do you find yourself at odds with representatives from those two towns?
Not at all. In fact, Wrentham this year has a negative assessment, which means they're a little bit lower than their assessment last year, just a tad, which is unusual. We're teasing them that they need to write us a check. Plainville is the one that gets hit the most. So each year it's a shell game on which town, due to the formula, gets hit the hardest. This year, Plainville's assessment is around 10% or so. And that's because of our several factors in the formula. One is the wealth factor. Plainville is actually doing very well on the new growth, and we're doing pretty well on the revenue also. So even though we have a high assessment, our town administrator has been very, and the selectmen have been very accepting of it.
How much different is it being on the finance subcommittee of a regional high school compared to, say, the superintendent of schools and being on the school committee in North Attleboro, where you submit a budget, a town manager says, no, I'm not giving you that much, and so on. You're dealing with three communities.
Yes, so being a regional school, it's different from the elementary schools in the way the budgeting. The elementary schools have a lot of things picked up by the towns. The health insurance, for instance, that's a big chunk of the teacher compensation. The regional operates more as a municipality, so we have to pay for all of that in our budget. So yes, it is 2 out of 3 towns that have to vote at town meetings. Usually, like I alluded to earlier, There's one town that gets hit really hard. Last year was Norfolk. This year it's Plainville. The other two towns are very happy having either a negative for assessment for Rentham or a very low one for Norfolk. So 2 out of 3 are going to win. Plus Plainville is going to support it as well. So I've never known it to be a split decision.
And on the horizon, not that it impacts King Philip at all, but certainly impacts Plainville's budget. Tri-County, Plainville is the 3rd most represented community at Tri-County,
Yes.
so they're paying a larger share.
We have the largest share out of the communities for Tri-County. But I think it's very important for the trades to have a modern facility. In fact, my son is at Tri-County now. He's a sophomore in the automotive. He graduates the year before they start the everything, so he won't see it. But I support the Tri-County new building, and I think the communities. It's a 50-year-old building, and it's in very bad shape. So we are going to compete with that. And what we've done is on the finance side of that is we're looking ahead. And this year we're going to be proposing a stabilization fund for King Philip, so that we can start funding that in advance of certain capital projects that we know are coming down the road in several years. Turf field, for instance, we can fund that in advance so that we don't have to assess the towns whenever the time comes. It's pay in advance type of thing.
Now, when you say turf field, you mean replacement of the turf on the
Refurbishment,
what's
yes.
known as the football field?
Yes,
but it's
yes.
the all-purpose field.
Yes, I don't know what it's 10, 12, whatever years it is. You have to do a refurbishment of it to keep it safe and in shape. So, you know, it's sort of like a roof. You need to replace that every 20, 25 years. So yes, we're trying to mitigate some of the costs, and we are definitely keeping the Tri-County assessments in focus.
While we're on the subject of athletic fields, I know Attleboro High School has a very large artificial turf, baseball, softball, soccer field. Bishop Feion High School just converted their baseball field to artificial turf. Do you ever see that being the case in King Philip, or would that be a tough sell?
It would be a tough sell, and I haven't heard anybody suggest it yet. So that's really not on my horizon. So right now we're just dealing with the one turf field that we have.
So moving forward, if you were to get elected over the next 3 years, what would you say are the 3 biggest issues you would be dealing with?
Strategic plan is one thing that we're focused on right now. That's a main focus. We're developing a strategic plan, a new strategic plan for the next 5 years. That's just now starting. We talked about it last night's school committee meeting. But also the moving forward with the culture of King Philip and trying to just make things better, continue with the high level of education, focusing on not just the students at the top end, but also in the middle and at the lower end that needs supports. So everything revolves around the students, and so that's just making sure that we have a responsible budget that supports, the highest level of education.
Okay, let's talk about a couple controversial subjects. The first being the elementary school in North Attleboro, which didn't ban a book but pulled it from library shelves. I'm sure you read about that.
Yes.
If something like that were to occur at King Philip Middle School or King Philip High School, a parent complains, a committee pulls the book. As a school committee member, would you have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with a parent questioning books that are on the shelves and whether it's appropriate. We need age-appropriate books. And one thing that's a little bit divisive that I've noticed is the DEI agenda, and there's more politics that are creeping in. I'm trying to keep it focused on education, keep the politics, whether it's on the left or on the right, keep that out of it, focus on education, teach children how to think, not what to think. So as far as the book bans, is it age appropriate? Do we have a book that's more pornographic than it is educational? That would be something. And we have had parents question books, and there is a process that we have in place to question the book and go through a book review that includes the librarian, the teachers, and various other people. So there is a mechanism to remove books if necessary, but it's for the right reasons.
Story broke during the football season about a hazing incident when the football team was at camp. I believe the head coach was forced to sit out a game or two. I thought some of the players involved might be held out of games as well. That wasn't the case, and I heard people in communities that aren't King Philip communities, well, they wouldn't want to do that because that would hurt the team and the team would lose. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? Should there have been some kind of game suspension for players?
So now we're delving into the superintendent's realm, not the school committee. So the school committee doesn't get involved with the discipline of teachers or students. That's completely outside of our boundaries.
Would that be part of policies, though?
Well, the policy is that you don't do hazing. So there's your policy. Now, how you deal with that, you know, where it ends for us is we observe the decision-making process, and was it a good decision or a bad decision, and was there logic behind the decision? So we look at the totality of the decision, and we evaluate the superintendent, you know, once a year. So that's kind of where we come in on this, but I'm not going to comment on whether it was appropriate or inappropriate for the actions that were taken.
My guess is if it were to happen again this summer, you and other school committee members might be a little more outspoken in a meeting.
We would definitely want to know why the mitigation factors did not work. So,
Election day in Plainville is on Monday, April 1st. Two candidates, yourself and Chris Renee.
yes.
Why should someone going to the polls, and let's hope lots of people go to the polls on April 1st, take advantage of that freedom that they have and that right that they have.
Yes.
Why should they cast a ballot for Bruce Cates?
I've been involved for over 10 years in Plainville politics. Community service is sort of my hobby. Ever since I graduated, even in college, community service has been a big part of my after work life, if you will. I've been the chairman of the finance committee. Simultaneously, I was chairman of the charter committee. And now I'm on King Philip School Committee. And the reason I got on that was because there was a crisis at that time with a superintendent that was let go, a finance director that was let go, and big change there. Lots of cultural issues there. So the common theme there is basically there was a crisis of some sort, and whenever I entered, whatever it was I entered, and I worked with the group, not single-handedly, I didn't do anything single-handedly, it was working with the group collaboratively, and tried to solve the problem. So on King Philip, whenever I entered 6 years ago, teacher or contract negotiations among the various contracts would take multiple nights, and it's very litigious. We had to get lawyers involved, and it was very it was a very bad culture. Since I've been on, we have done every single contract in one night. There's been no lawyers involved. We have reduced the lawyer fees by 83% over the past 6 years, which is significant. And so it's basically, I want the continuity. As we have the new superintendent, 2 new principals, and some other changes coming down. I think it's very important to have the history to bring that forward.
Bruce, best of luck on April 1st.
Thank you very much. No fooling.
Chris, let me begin by asking, why are you a candidate for King Philip School Committee?
So I think it's important to bring the best possible education to our students at King Philip. And I think that I'm a good candidate that has a lot to offer on the school committee there. I have been with the Plainville School Committee now for about 3 years, so my term's coming up. But my daughter's a senior at KP, and my son's in 8th grade. So my kids have moved on, and I think it's a good opportunity now to move on to the KP School Committee.
I ask this of any candidate who is taking on an incumbent. Do you think Bruce has done a poor job and that's one of the reasons you're running?
No, I actually worked with Bruce on the school committee for 2 years. I was an appointee from the Plainville schools, so I got along well with Bruce, but right now, he's got the seat that's up, and there isn't another available seat for Plainville, and I'd like to be on that school committee, and I think that I will bring something to that group.
Nice answer, because he said you're a nice guy.
All right.
If elected, what do you feel will be one of the biggest issues as a school committee member you'll be looking at for KP over the next 3 years?
I think one of the things that just came up was the budget. So that's going to be a challenge going into the next fiscal year and going forward. So I think that's something that's going to be tough for the school committee and the administration to tackle with the towns and in coordination with the towns. But I think we did very well on the Plainville side, fostering a relationship with the town. We were in a really tough spot, but over the past 3 years, this school committee, along with the town and new superintendent, Dr. Parson now, have really brought back a lot of the programs. So most of the teaching positions have been restored. The band program is back in place. So I think we've done well in that aspect, and I'd like to do the same for KP.
KP is a little bit different in the fact that the superintendent in Plainville talks directly with Brian Noble, the town administrator, on budget needs, etc. It's ultimately approved by town meeting. Mm-hmm. King Philip, Norfolk has a say, Rentham has a say, and if Plainville voters outvoted 2-1, the budget passes. I think of Norfolk as a wealthy community. Rentham, of course, the big controversy over about we don't want affordable housing in our town. Plainville by no means is a poor town, but compared to the other two, that puts Plainville in a challenging situation if Norfolk and Rentham really want to spend big money on the school.
That is true. I think, I know coming into this next fiscal year, the conversations that have been had with the town were in alignment, I believe. On the Plainville side, I don't know that that's the same on the Norfolk and Rentham side right now. I know it's a tough budget year for Norfolk, so that I think is going to be the challenge coming in. I know from conversations with one of the select members from Plainville that we're not looking for any more cuts right now. The select board has done a fantastic job in Plainville of generating revenue versus bringing on new taxes. So I think, based on the conversations that I've had, we are looking to deliver on what's being asked for out of King Philip's request right now.
So I would think your peers from Rentham on the school committee, your peers from Norfolk on the school committee, it's very important for the three towns to work together.
Yes, 100% agree. I think the members on the school committee are looking to support, KP. It comes down to that relationship with the town and really trying to show what are you getting for your money? What's the value that's coming back to the King Philip school system from what the towns are investing? And I think if that's done well to each of the towns, then the towns tend to go with that. So building that relationship and having that trust is the key. When that isn't there, it becomes very difficult for the schools to get the money that they need to keep those programs going. So KP is a very high caliber school. It's rated best, one of the best in the country, and we'd like to keep it there. And I think if you can show that those programs are going to be maintained, then or grown, these towns are willing to invest in their kids coming out.
Operating budgets are always a challenge. How about capital needs? I know probably about time to replace the artificial turf at the football field. I say football field, but it's also soccer and lacrosse and everything else. Of all the sports, football plays there the least, but everyone says football field. How about capital needs moving forward, and what challenges will those pose?
So those will be, so capital is always a challenge to maintain a fund that can grow to basically to cover those costs going forward, and to potentially take out a loan on some a large replacement. So the roof also may be something that would be coming up in the capital plan. So I think establishing a long-term plan for capital is the most important thing. You can't get hit, well, if you do get hit with one massive cost up front, that's not gonna be tolerated well between the towns. So developing a plan to invest or put away that money so that you can then do those things when it comes time will be the key.
Plainville, as the town sending, I believe, that the third most students to Tri-County, has a big bill to pay moving forward with the building of a new Tri-County. Voters overwhelmingly approved it in Plainville. Are you worried that that's going to impact what the town and maybe Rentham and Norfolk are going to be able to pay in the future towards King Philip?
So that's a good point. That is a great new facility that's going to be established, but that's going to be a lot to finance. There's more towns than just ours that are in the Tri-County program, so it will be offset there. But I think we'll still be sending a number of students into the KP school system, and one of the things that has been put out there is establishing some of the programs within KP to come out with some type of certification, like EMT. I know phlebotomy was another one. So you can come out, not just be college bound, and have a good technical skill that you're going to be doing well at coming straight out of school.
Big news in the school system was the retirement of Paul Zinni. New superintendent came in this year. I had a chance to interview him. Very impressed. Your thoughts on the new superintendent?
Well, I think he's a great fit for KP. I was on the search committee that hired him. That was one of my 2 years that I was sitting on KP. So I think he's really coming from Seekonk and what he did there. I think he really will take KP to the next level if he's enabled. So that's one of the big things as well, enabling him to do his job well at KP.
And new principals as well. So there's been a lot of turnover.
Yep. Yes.
How important is it to work with new people and new administrators as a member of the school committee?
I think it's important to work with new members as well as any of the old members that have been there, or experienced staff. I think building those relationships with someone new is a very important piece, whereas if you're comfortable with somebody, things can move faster. So the faster you can develop those relationships in a positive way, the better off the school committee and the administration is going to be.
Couple of controversial subjects now.
Okay.
Sure, you read about North Attleboro and the pulling of the book Woke, Young Poets' Call to Justice from one of the elementary schools. King Philip, not an elementary school, not a middle school, older students, but it wouldn't be your decision, it would be the superintendent's decision ultimately, depending on the policy. If a parent came forward and the superintendent addressed the school committee, they want this book pulled off the shelf, what would your reaction be?
So I think it's important to take a look at what the material is, and there are Common Sense Media is out there. They do a nice job of looking at where does that book fall age-wise, where do parents see it, where do kids see it, and where do the experts see it. So I think that's a good baseline to start with. But I think it's important for the school committee to actually read the material themselves and come up with what's their understanding of it, and see, does that line up with the grade level that you'd be putting out there. And there has been some debate on books that have been offered as learning, but not necessarily mandatory reading. And I think that's another key piece, that if you don't have it as mandatory reading, it's something that parents, if they decide that that's not something for their kids, then that's not something that they're going to have their child read, and they don't have to. It's not going to affect their grade.
The other controversial suspect, I said within air quotes because
Okay.
people can't see me. I'm sure you know about the hazing incident at a football camp last summer. Head coach was sidelined
Yep.
because of it. None of the players were. And I speak to people in other Hockomock League towns and they, well, they did not bench the players or suspend the players because they want to win a championship. What would you say to people like that?
So not being there in that situation and not necessarily understanding who was in charge of that and the leadership there taking responsibility, it's hard to say that I would bench students that if that was the environment that was being fostered at that higher level, that would be a tough call. It's not a firsthand experience, so I would.
Safe to say that
I mean,
it might be a little more outspoken if it were to happen again this summer?
I think that they've already had the learning experience, so if something like that did happen again, then I think that would be a whole different level. At all levels, I think it would be appropriate to hold everyone accountable.
Final question, a little easier question. When voters in Plainville go to the polls on April 1st, they'll be electing one member to the King Philip School Committee for the next 3 years. Why should they cast their ballot for Chris Bernays?
Well, I would say that I do come with some experience on the management side as well. So in my job today, I'm senior director in a medical device manufacturing company. I have experience managing a relatively large operating budget. And I also have some prior experience in the military. So I did 10 years in the reserves, did a tour in Afghanistan, and when I came back, I was an instructor for training support battalion out of Devon. So I have some experience actually imparting knowledge to others, and I think I'm not afraid to tackle tough issues and stay involved and engaged.
Thank you for your service, and best of luck on April 1st.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
This special and the school committee candidates forum recorded in our North TV studio will be replayed through election night, April 1st, right here on our Plainville channel. So please make sure you vote. As I mentioned earlier, polls open at 7 a.m. and will close at 8 p.m. on April 1st. Voters in all precincts will cast ballots at the Public Safety Building at 194 South Street behind Plainville Town Hall. North TV's live election night coverage will begin at 8:15 p.m. Tuesday night, April 1st on our Plainville channel, Comcast Channel 8, and also streaming on plainville.northtv.net. We'll see you then.